play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to
the top. And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Canadiens make the playoffs. Canadiens make the playoffs. Canadiens make the playoffs. All right, okay, they got it done. They got it done. And this city is going to be hot, blazing hot over the next couple of weeks. The Montreal Canadiens, once again, they said they wanted to be in the mix. And they're not only in the mix, they're in the playoffs. They needed a point to qualify for the playoffs. They won the game outright by a score of 4-2. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't easy. But as they say, they got the job done. Without further ado, let me bring in former Montreal Canadien, Maxim Lapierre. Max, how are you?
Phenomenal, Tony. How are you?
Very good. Not too many people predicted this team to make the playoffs. You were one of them. I had them 2 points out. I have to admit, I had them before the season started, 2 points out. Before the season started, you gave your pick. You had them in, and in they are. Once again, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't easy. It doesn't really matter at this point, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm so happy for this young group. You know, they're such a good, talented group of players, and I feel like, yes, making the playoff is all nice, and it's a fun feeling tonight. But when I look back into my career, like, playing in the playoffs defines you as a person, defines you as a player. You discover so many things about yourself. You can build your own career in the playoffs by showing how much character you have when the game matters the most. And I feel these guys are lucky to have the chance to live this in Montreal. We all know how special it is in Montreal, but there's another level is when you wear the skates and you're on the bench playing for the Montreal Canadiens in the playoffs. These guys, I was watching the end of the game and I got goosebumps, Tony. You know, like I want to replay these moments again in my head. This is so special. These guys are lucky. And one last point, we've been talking about rebuilding a team and all this. Well, this is the biggest part is right now. We're so lucky that so fast we have the chance to get to play big games like this that matters against Alexander Ovechkin in the playoffs. You know, this is huge. This group is going to grow so fast because of it.
It's a sick podcast that is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. We're going to have an amazing podcast tonight because Max Lapierre is with us. Pierre McGuire will be with us as well. George Stroumboulopoulos, one of the biggest Montreal Canadiens fans in the world, Strombo will be with us. Brian Wilde is covering the game for Global TV Montreal, but he's going to join us. And so about every 15, 20 minutes or so, someone is going to join us, and we're going to have a lot of fun on the podcast tonight, as I'm sure Montreal Canadiens fans in the city of Montreal and all around the world are having right now. Celebrate National Poker Day at Playground with 20,000, in mystery hand prizes. National Poker Day is Saturday, April 19. Playground is turning up the excitement with a 24-hour mystery high hand promotion from 8 a.m. on Saturday, April 19th to 8 a.m. on Sunday. Cash prizes will be up for grabs every 30 minutes with a total of $20,000 in mystery prizes. It's now time for the McGuire Report.
The McGuire Report. Presented by Vago Italian.
Yeah, the McGuire Report is presented by Vago Italian on Green Avenue, corner of the Maisonneuve. I've talked to you about Tommaso at the front door and his partner, Angelo, in the kitchen, of course. They've been open 23 years. Longevity, not many restaurants open that long. Private dining rooms for any occasion, birthday engagements, corporate meetings, plenty of free parking after 6, open Monday to Saturday evenings, and lunch Tuesday to Friday. Fresh quality ingredients, old world Italian classics and new Italian. Come see Tommaso, the most popular man in Westmount, at the front of the house. Pierre, we pulled out all the stops today. We called the priest to say a prayer for the Montreal Canadiens. He did. We called Marilena Lentini, who's an expert in North America, one of the best to remove an evil eye, should an evil eye have been on the Montreal Canadiens. She looked into it. She said that they were cursed, Pierre. They didn't have a very good week. It was difficult, of course, with the losses in Ottawa and the loss in Toronto and the loss versus the Chicago Blackhawks a couple nights ago. As I told Max, Pierre, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't easy, but they got it done. You could tell, Pierre, the young group that we've talked about, you could tell they were battling nerves, especially in the last week. And that's part of the process that I think Max was talking about, right?
I thought Max was so eloquent when he was speaking about the process of being a good player in the National Hockey League and understanding what you have to do to be successful in a playoff situation. So today was do or die. You know, the one reason why they're in this position, though, Tony, you talked about a loss. Saturday night in Toronto, I think, helped them get better, even though they didn't win the game. It helped them get better. I thought Monday against Chicago, I hated their game. I hated the way they played. I didn't like the fact they were playing shinny. And I think tonight you could see when it came close to shutdown time for them, they were much better than they were on Monday night. So that's all part of what Max was talking about. But here's the thing that I really admire about this team. Everybody was talking about Demidov. He was the guy, right? Not tonight, he wasn't. He was 10 minutes in the game. That's what he played. And the coach realized, you know what? We might have had a malfunction at the junction. He's not going to play when it's a 1-goal game. He's not going to play when it's a 2-goal game. I love the kid. He's going to be a superstar. To coin one of my friend Max Lapierre's phrases, he's a franchise player. That being said, the coach recognized we're not messing around with young guys tonight. We're winning tonight. And that's what they did. The coach got better. The players got better. The system got better. They're ready to play in the playoffs. They're much better than they were 4 days ago.
You know what I like tonight is this is the type of game where you see who the real leaders are on a team. And obviously Suzuki has been playing well the whole year. But in the second period, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, and Goulet, the whole game, they raised their game to another level tonight. And this is the future of the organization. And you want them to show up in a game like this. And they did tonight big time.
Agreed.
All right. So, Max, I got a question for you on what Pierre just said, because I totally understand what Pierre says. I'm watching the game, and I'm getting all kinds of text messages from my buddies saying, I can't believe it. He's not playing the kid. I said, guys, you know, it's a kid who came in with a new system. He's not going to say it, but clearly he's not taking a chance right now. He doesn't trust the kid's defensive game just yet, and he's going to go with some more experienced players. Now, Max, everyone's different. We don't know how the kid will take it. The good news is that he had a nice smile on his face at the end of the game. Obviously, any team player has to put the team ahead of himself. Do you think, though, like if you were him, though, and you're that young player, are you saying, you know, he doesn't trust my defensive game? Or are you saying, you know what, he's going with guys that have more experience and I understand why he's doing it?
1,000%. Like there's no 19 years old that come inside of a dressing room and they just go like, this is my spot and I'm going to lead this team into the playoff starting game 80. It doesn't work like this. And I understand everyone is so excited. I am excited. It's spectacular. Every time he touches the puck, he's good. He's creative. Like we can see, like Pierre said, he's a franchise player, but there's so many things that you need to analyze. It's not just he didn't play or he played a lot. It's There's 80 games that were played before he arrived. The guys, they did an unreal job to be in the playoffs. So you cannot just arrive and say, you're out. You're not playing on the power play. He's going to take your spot. It doesn't work like this. You're going to ruin your dressing room. Okay, that's the first step. Second thing is, are you really going to, even if you know he's good defensively and he's good offensively, are you going to put this kid in trouble? Like, really? Like, let's see tonight he makes a turnover. Hurricanes, they score a goal. They score another goal and we lose. We don't make the playoffs because of a turnover. Why take that risk to start this kid's career that way?
By the way, where he Max, pardon me. There was one play. Sorry about that, Max. There was one play where he banked it off the boards in the defensive zone, and it got kept in the zone. And you could tell the kid, you know, they were a little rattled there, and the kid was like, he knew it, right? He was like, oh man. When he got off the ice, he was a little bit upset with himself. I think Marty St. Louis went over to see him actually and talked to him a little bit, and maybe made him aware of, you know, either what happened on that play or maybe made him aware that, you know, we're probably going to pick our spots with you tonight. But, you know, I didn't think his line mate was going either. Like, guys, I don't think Patrick Laine helped Ivan Demidov tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong. Pierre?
No, he didn't have a great night. No, he didn't. I'll tell you who was jumping, though. That Newhook boy is jumping. Like, he's skating, he's playing, he's trying to make stuff happen. Yeah. So, no, Laine wasn't very good. Listen, I'm going to date myself here. When Jaromir Jagr was 18 and 19 years of age, he wasn't on the first power play in Pittsburgh. Trust me, I was there. And we brought in a guy, Yuri Hrdina, to explain it to him. A good leader in Montreal tonight, and Max has been in the room. He knows what I'm talking about. They're just going to take the kid aside and say, we're counting on you long term. Don't take tonight personally. It's all you're part of our group. We're going to help you out. You're going to help us out. It's all good. And that's what Herdina did with Jaromir Jagr. Brian Trottier did the same thing. You got to have that. You just can't. Max's point is perfect. You take a guy and throw him in the lineup in game 80 and say, oh, by the way, you're the savior of the team. What about if you're the guy that has a mortgage payment, a car payment, and 3 kids? You don't want to hear that about a 19-year-old guy that's just got there. That's not what you want to hear. Right, Maxie?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If Lane Hudson wasn't on the first PP in regular season game 1, Demidov is not gonna just arrive and move the whole team around. It doesn't work like this. And you know what? That's a perfect example. They did it perfect with Hudson. They gave him a few reps on the second power play. They were waiting for the first PP to go wrong, and then they gave him the call. This is how it works inside of a hockey team.
Yeah.
Okay, having said that, Pierre, a couple of nights ago, you thought, you know what? Don't be surprised if Ivan Demidov's on that first line with Suzuki and Caulfield. Didn't happen tonight, but once again, do you think that St. Louis really thought about it and said, if I do this right away, maybe I rub a couple of guys the wrong way? Let's start the game. Let's see what kind of start we get out to. Let's see how it goes. And you know what? We'll reevaluate later on in the hockey game.
I think the best coaches always reevaluate as the game goes along. And if you're going to be a good coach in Montreal, you got to always reevaluate what your lineup's doing. If that team would have fallen behind 2-0, I'm not sure they would have had the same lines after 15 or 20 minutes if they fell behind 2-0 in the first 10 minutes. So I can't predict that. But what I would say is I think the coach was really prudent tonight. The players clearly paid attention. They didn't play a real good game on Monday night. I'll tell you that right now. People can say whatever they want. They didn't play a good game. The best news for Montreal fans, they got a point in Toronto on Saturday, and they got a point at home against Chicago on Monday. Because if they didn't get those points, tonight's 2 points wouldn't have mattered very much.
But, Max, considering the players that Carolina had on the ice tonight or the players that they didn't have on the ice tonight, did the Canadiens play a good game? Now, it didn't matter. They got the job done, but
Tony, are we a powerhouse? Like we're in the playoffs right now. Let's fix something right now.
No.
Like Carolina wasn't that much worse than us tonight. You know, like they had Hall in the, like they had good players in the Roslovich. Like they had good players in the lineup. Burns was there. Like it wasn't an exhibition game lineup. Like it's they weren't a playoff team, but they weren't that bad. Every player that is in the NHL knows how to skate, you know, like guys, I was hearing people panicking about we cannot lose this game. It doesn't work like this in hockey. It's a team game. And you're right, Tony, this group is nervous. It's the most nervous I've seen this young group all year, 100%. Passes in the skates, passes 6 feet in front. Like it's normal to be nervous. If you're not nervous in a game like this in Montreal, you're not human.
Hey, Tony,
Pierre,
one other thing to build off Max's point, the other guys get paid too. You know, you're not playing against amateurs. The other guys get paid.
Yeah.
They're professionals too.
Yeah, and there's other guys, of course, that got their opportunity out for the American Hockey League that they want to show, hey, you know what? I think I could be on this team next year.
Bradley Nadeau, Maxie, you were a checker. Bradley Nadeau would be a tough guy to check.
Yeah,
he's a hell of a player. He's going to be a big-time player in the NHL.
We were talking about it in my beer league this morning. Like, just imagine when I was 20 years old and you get the call up, you're going to play one game tonight in the NHL. Is your first game. I can guarantee you I would have found my way to do something right on the ice. It's your chance to make the NHL. You've been waiting for this your whole life. I think it's even worse than playing against a superstar because the superstar doesn't care about that game if he's in the playoffs already, right? Like, he doesn't play the same way.
Agreed.
All right, okay. So, Pierre, we talked about the nervousness. Granted, I think everyone saw it in the last week. Can we talk about fatigue? Now, only they know if they're feeling it. But is it me, or they don't have the jump that they had a couple of weeks ago?
It's not you.
Is that confidence?
Max talked about the fatigue. I think it's mental, but there's also physical. So it's a combination of both. And the pressure in Montreal is a little greater than maybe some other place in the league. But, Tony, I don't think you're wrong. I think you're right. The one thing I just texted a real good friend of mine that's in the NHL, and I said, there are two guys that I'm telling you, if I'm coaching this team, they're not coming to the rink tomorrow. One of them's Lane Hudson, and one of them's Nick Suzuki. And I'm telling them, don't you even come to the rink unless you need therapy. You don't come to the rink. And Max will tell you this, Tony, and nobody wants to admit it. The hardest part about this time of the year, it's not about playing the games. The hardest part is about putting your skates on and putting your pads on for practice. I'm telling you, Tony, Max will tell you that's the hardest part about this time of the year right now.
Max, if you're a player on that team and the playoffs start, did the schedule come out yet?
I think it's Monday.
I don't even know if it did.
I think it's Monday.
We're looking at Monday, Wednesday, first game, second game, and then Friday, Sunday, third game and fourth game in Montreal, I believe. I had heard that too earlier today, but I just wanted to see if it was official. Because, of course, TV rights holders already have some of the dates already before they actually get out there, and they are official. But I just wanted to see if it was official. Now, okay, having said that, Max, you're a player on that team. What would the practice schedule be like here over the next couple of days if they play game one in Washington on Monday?
I think I would have a practice just on Sunday. I would have meetings on Saturday, little warm-up, bike ride, something like this, and practice on the ice Sunday and fly after. That would be what I would do.
Pierre,
I think it's obvious guys are tired.
Yeah. Pierre, you had a chance to coach in the league.
I've been through this in a back-to-back situation. What Max just said is not far off the base. I would say nothing tomorrow. Everybody gets a night off. Tonight's like, you have fun tonight. You celebrate because you don't get a lot of chances. And Maxie knows this. You don't get a lot of chances to celebrate. So you take it and you run with it tonight. Thursday, nothing. Friday, meetings. Saturday, some guys need to skate. Other guys don't. Sunday, practice. Right down to Washington.
Sorry, I thought we were Thursday. We're Wednesday. Yeah. Practice on Saturday. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Practice. But that's what I'm telling you, Tony. Like I've been through this twice.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, if you're not smart in how you plan your practice schedule, you're going to be in trouble. And Max has been in the final. He'll tell you in Vancouver, like it's hard to do. Hey, Maxie, it's not easy. People don't understand. It's not that easy.
Guys, I haven't been crazy about the power play in quite some time here. And Pierre, you know special teams, how important they are in the playoffs. When you talk about practice, I guess the big point of emphasis is going to be the special teams, Pierre?
I would say 100%. And it's not just a power play. It's a penalty kill too, but different parts because you got to deal with Ovechkin now. Max was part of a team that had to deal with him. Hammerlick and Spacek were a huge part of that. So was Jaro Halak. And Maxie knows what I'm talking about in 2010. He's still a weapon. But there are other guys. Carlson's a weapon too. Max, you know how hard it was when they had Backstrom, Carlson, and Ovechkin there. Like that's hard to defend against. So they got to pay attention to that, and they got to pay attention to their power play.
Yep. Let's take a look at the Canadiens lineup tonight, and then we'll take a look at the score sheet as well. Suzuki with Slavkovsky and Caulfield, Dvorak with Gallagher and Anderson, Newhook with Demidov and Patrick Laine, and Evans with Armia and Heineman. Heineman in the lineup tonight, and Kapanen was out. On defense, no changes. Matheson, Carrier, Gouli, Hudson, Struble, Savard, Samuel Montembeault got the start and goal. Max, earlier today, my colleague at BPM Sports Radio, Alex Langto, says to me, yeah, you know what? Arbor Jacki will be in the playoffs. And a lot of people seem to believe that, but correct me if I'm wrong, Max, but having the last 6, 8, 10 games of the regular season, aren't those the playoffs without being the playoffs? And if he's not in those games, do we actually expect them to be playing in the playoffs if there's nobody injured?
I think he will play at one point if we see that we're losing games and the Washington is physical, hitting everyone, and Wilson is the show of in the building. You know, like you have no choice to go with this lineup. You just won, you clinch the playoffs, but I think you need to be ready to make some changes. It's not like we have a set team like Colorado or Tampa Bay where the 4 lines and 3 D pairs are phenomenal and they're going to the Hall of Fame after their careers. There's room for improvement on the odd night, you know.
Pierre, one of my buddies was had great seats tonight. He was pretty much at ice level, and he's a big fan of David Savard's, but he sent me a note and he said, Tony, it's tough. He's having a hard time turning, man. He's having a really, really hard time turning. But experience is big, especially in the playoffs. We're talking about a player who played some big playoff games and has a Stanley Cup ring, Pierre, and there aren't too many players in that locker room that have one. He has one, and Alex Newhook has one, and there's not too many others that do. There aren't others that do. So with that said, are you on the same page. They'll start with the same defenseman they have now. Arbor will sit now 1 point. If Tom Wilson is running wild on everyone, Marty St. Louis is probably going to really give it some serious consideration.
Yep. I think David Savard's another one of those guys that doesn't come to the rink tomorrow. He needs some time off. He needs a little downtime. Look, I did this with Larry Murphy, with Gordy Roberts, Alfie Samuelson's guys that are a little bit older at that time. Here's one thing. Everybody's talking about Tommy Wilson. And Max, again, probably knows this player really well. Nobody's talking about Dylan McElrath, okay? He's a beast. He's a really nice guy away from the rink. You don't want to be around him at the rink. You just don't, unless he's on your team. So at some point, Arbor's going to have to dance. You're going to have no choice. Washington's game plan is going to be first 5 minutes, we are going to pulverize these guys physically. I'm telling you, Tony, it's going to be mayhem on ice. The first 5 minutes of that game on Monday night, Max knows. You know what I'm talking about. It's not going to be slick. It's going to be mean. Yeah. It's going to be nasty. And they'll say, we'll take penalties, but we're going to hurt guys. You'll see. Max, am I wrong?
They have a fourth line that I like a lot.
Lane Hudson's going to get hit 50 times the first period.
I'm telling you right now, Tony, it's going to happen. So at some point, Arbor's going in. And when he goes in, you better know what he's doing. You're not going in there to score goals.
Yeah, they have a fourth line that I like a lot with Dowd and Duhaime and Taylor Radish. It's a pretty good fourth line.
Duhaime is tough too.
Duhaime is a nasty piece of business. He really is.
He's a big-time energy player. Big-time energy player. Liked him when he was in Colorado. Liked him when he was in Minnesota. He's a big-time energy player. He really is.
You should have seen him play at Providence College. He was running guys right through the wall in college.
So look, we got plenty of time to talk about the Capitals, but why don't we can bring in Strombo. Max, I don't want to keep you. So you know what? I will say good night. I thank you very much for being there because we're gonna have a revolving door here. Look, I want to really thank you because it wasn't planned for you to be on tonight because you're usually a regular on Tuesdays. It was Wednesday. I reached out and I said, look, Montreal Canadiens fans would love to hear from you, Max Lapierre. And you said, yeah, sure, no problem.
Yes,
even though I know you work really hard, you're pretty tired. Yeah. Just some closing thoughts, Max, on the achievement on this team. You called it. Rebuilds. Some teams take 8, 10, 12 years to do. The best ones get it done in 3 or 4. That's what the Canadiens accomplished here, Max.
It's a big step for sure. And I think this team did phenomenal things this year. And Marty St. Louis as a coach, like if you look at the whole story, like people weren't sure about his techniques at the beginning of the year. He found a way to put this group together and believe in themselves, and we're in the playoffs now. Like take tonight before you go to sleep, take the Montreal Canadiens lineup and analyze every single player. We're in the playoffs. That's solid teamwork because we're not supposed to be in the playoff with this lineup. No chance.
Max, you'll be on tomorrow on La Poche Bleue on your fantastic podcast, and I look forward to being a part of it tomorrow night on all social media channels, including YouTube at 8 p.m. Talk to you then, Max. The Sick Podcast.
See you later.
Fruiterie de l'Art is a family-run business, a mainstay in the LaSalle community since 1995. Proud to continue offering the same fresh foods and flavors they have for the past 30 years. From fresh fruits and produce delivered daily to an ever-expanding assortment of deli meats, cheeses, and sandwiches, you'll find personalized service and friendly faces that make you feel like family at Fruiterie de l'Art. Are the Montreal Canadiens going to knock off the Washington Capitals in round 1 of the playoffs? Well, if you want to get on the action, go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200. If your first bet loses, scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. You know, the Canadiens making the playoffs makes me happy for a lot of people. It makes me happy for Montreal Canadiens owner Jeff Molson. It makes me happy for his management team. It makes me happy for the coaching staff and the players, the entire staff. Of course, the entire city of Montreal, Montreal Canadiens fans all over the world, the restaurant owners and bar owners and all the establishments all over the city that are going to benefit from this. Everyone in sports radio, sports television, and those who have podcasts dedicated to the Montreal Canadiens. But when we talk about fans, Pierre, probably one of the biggest Montreal Canadiens fans in the world, and the Canadiens recognize it in the rebuild. He was the narrator part of it. And of course, they know how big a fan he is, and he's a proud Montreal Canadiens fan. It's always a pleasure and an honor when I have him on the Sick Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, George Stroumboulopoulos.
Gentlemen.
How are you?
How are you? By the way, I was waiting for Max. I'm sitting here with my autographed Maxim Lapierre hockey stick.
Oh, really?
I love it. I love Max. Hey, bonsoir, Pierre. Bonsoir, Tony. What a game. What a game. I did not enjoy almost any of it.
George, if I would have told you before the season started that this team that had gone through 3 years of rebuild and this year 4 would make the playoffs on the final night of the season, would you have believed me?
I'm a man of extremes, Tony, so I would have said one of two things are possible: third last or make the playoffs. But I'll tell you something. It became very apparent how streaky they were going to be, not just in a game, but in their mindset, that I started to believe that they could make the playoffs. I started to believe it probably around Christmas. And I thought, oh, this is a special team because there's something really interesting happening with their development. I haven't seen a team grow with a coach before. Pierre, you've been on a lot of benches, so you've seen players grow, you've seen coaches go, but you rarely get to see them all do it together. And I found that really fascinating. So I'm very happy, Tony, and I probably would have been a little surprised. And listen, when the Habs miss the playoffs, it means I have a peaceful spring. Now all my anxiety levels are going to spike. Cortisol's going to go. Oh, I'm not ready to enjoy this.
Pierre, George said that around Christmas time he started to believe, and around Christmas time, of course, they had won a couple of back-to-back games versus the Detroit Red Wings. They had beat the Buffalo Sabres, and then after the Christmas holidays is when they really started to beat some heavy-duty hockey teams. They shut out the Florida Panthers in Florida by a score of 4-0 on a Saturday, December 28th. The following late afternoon, they beat the Lightning in Tampa. I think it was 5-2. A couple of days after that, they beat the Vegas Golden Knights 3-2 in Vegas. Montembeault made 3 huge stops with 30 seconds left. 3 or 4 nights after that, on a Saturday night in Colorado, Jakob Dober stood on his head, and they beat the Colorado Avalanche in a shootout. A couple of weeks after that, they won in Utah on the road. They won in Dallas. But I have a stat for you. On February 10th, and my buddy Paul Antoniadis sent this over, who's a season ticket holder, and he has been for the longest time, and he keeps track of stats like you can't believe. On February 10th, the Montreal Canadiens had 55 points, gentlemen. They were 11-8 points out of a wild card spot behind Boston and Pittsburgh. Since the Four Nations, they're 15-5-6. Pierre, that's quite the turnaround.
No, it's a tremendous turnaround. There are 2 trades in the National Hockey League this year that happened before the trade deadline. One was Cam Fowler leaving Anaheim, going to St. Louis. He helped engineer St. Louis getting in. The other one was Alex Carrier leaving Nashville, coming to Montreal. It created the perfect slotting for a lot of the Canadiens defensemen. And if you look at the rise of the Canadiens team, and George will appreciate this, I know how much he watches their games. This team got a lot better when they got Alex Carrier in the lineup. And Lane Hudson started to thrive, and Mike Matheson had his time reduced on ice, and everything started to get better. So you're right, Tony. Since the Four Nations been over, Nick Suzuki's been tremendous. Cole Caulfield's been great. You can't say enough about Dvorak, Anderson, and what he's been able to do. That line has been able to do with Brendan Gallagher. But I would say this: they don't get enough credit for that early season trade when they traded Barron to Nashville to get Alex Carrier. That trade made a massive difference.
You know, I'm not in the dressing room, obviously, guys, and I watch it as a fan, and I know people in the game, so I'll make phone calls and get a little bit of insight, but I'm not in the room. I don't follow it. But I've interviewed about 10,000 people over the last 30 years, and one thing I can see is what a player says, what they aren't saying, what their face is saying. You can pick up on things. There's a lot about the Montreal Canadiens coaching to the players throughout the year where I started to think there's a little bit of a fragility with the personalities in the team. They get angry at the wrong people, media, too quickly. There's a thing that's happening because they're learning how to do this. They were so used to being loved and everything was great for a year and a half, 2 years, that when questions started to happen, you could see even star players being a little snippy in a way that I thought, to me at least, signaled that psychologically it's not as solid, the footing, as it needs to be. A Carrier comes in. He's not the greatest player in the National Hockey League. On paper, that shouldn't change the team's fortunes the way it did. But I think psychologically, he brought a different kind of calmness to the room. And there's a couple players who you could see, when Josh Anderson really embraced this new role. What a turnaround for Josh. Galley being Galley. You're starting to see psychologically the men, not the boys, the men had a different calmness to them. And I wonder if that settled it a bit. And Nick, I remember Tony watching the Sick podcast early in the year. We were thinking, what's going on with Nick right now? Something's up.
Yeah. He was inconsistent, which is something that he has not shown us in the last couple of years. He's been a model of consistency. And in October, like most of his teammates in the system that gave up 6 in Boston in a loss, and 6 versus Pittsburgh in a loss, and 7 versus the Rangers in a loss, and 8 versus Seattle in a loss, and 6 in Washington in a loss on Halloween Thursday. Yeah. He looked lost. He looked like, once again, he didn't have it. But Pierre, George just brought up Nick Suzuki, and a lot of people, everyone's got an opinion when somebody's a captain, right? Well, he's not vocal enough, or he doesn't lead enough by example, or could he be the guy, to let one of his teammates have it and stuff like that. I think Nick, as the season went on, became not only a better hockey player, I think he became a better captain, Pierre.
Totally agree. And I love what George was saying, by the way, about the calmness in the room. It doesn't always have to be the biggest player. It has to be a guy that can come in and stabilize everything. There are 2 players in the National Hockey League. I talked about Cam Fowler going to St. Louis and Carrier coming to Montreal. Think about John Tavares and what he's done for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Didn't play in the 4 Nations. And think about Nick Suzuki, who didn't play in the 4 Nations. George, both those guys have made massive differences for their respective teams. They didn't play in the 4 Nations.
I think they're pissed, though. That's the thing. I think the combination of rest, they're pissed off. Yes. Then, Pierre, I wanted to ask you this question as a guy who has watched players develop. I've heard so much, and we tend to romanticize this anyway when it comes to a team like the Habs. I live in Toronto, where the Leaf fans are just as irrational as we are. There's a lot has been said about the Nick Suzuki conversation with Kent Hughes, and Kent Hughes talking about it now. And I haven't heard in recent years that kind of exchange, honesty, reaching us. I haven't heard a guy saying, don't trade him, and another guy saying, you're not doing it. You're not doing what you need to be doing. The fact that we're hearing it, that to me was an indicator that the Habs are a little bit more confident with who they are now. And Nick realized that he had to figure it out. I think Nick's amazing, obviously, and I don't worry about a guy who has inconsistent spurts in the season because he's still relatively young on a team that, as of the previous 3 years, we're talking about last and 2 5th overall picks. Not a good team, and suddenly it's become a playoff team. That there's a lot of components that have to happen. Nick, I think, being one of them, but honestly, I think Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher have been, because Gallagher got us some really important wins in those stretches you're talking about, Tony. Really important stretches where Gallagher and Armia and they just won shifts. When we couldn't win games, we needed to win shifts, and they just won shifts.
So, Tony, what George just said is so right. So you got Dvorak, who got better the second half of the year. You got Jake Evans, who had a great season till he got his contract. Then he kind of tailed off a little bit. But Josh Anderson's a guy that embraced what they were selling. And all the other guys see what Josh is doing, to George's point, and they're like, you know what, it's working for him. Maybe I better start to listen a little bit. And so if there's one hole in the whole thing with this group, the second center position is something that needs to get fixed long term. But the group that they have right now, George, I couldn't be more proud of this group. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable to watch them.
Pierre, you just brought up Josh Anderson's name. He received the Jacques Beauchamp Molson Trophy earlier, right after the game, handed to him by Joe Bernier of Journal de Montréal as basically the unsung hero in the season for the Montreal Canadiens, the quote-unquote 4th star. And I think that's a terrific choice. He's also their nominee for the Bill Masterton guys. I called out Josh Anderson last year. I mean, there were times where I'm like, I don't understand. Like, where's the professional pride? Where's the personal pride? This guy is so much better than that. He can do so much more. That's the type of guy that does not have to put up a lot of points anymore. He scored 27 goals in a season 6 years ago. He doesn't have to score 27 goals anymore. It would be nice. But what I'm saying is, even if he doesn't, he can still help a hockey team. He goes out. He hits hard. He changes the momentum of a game. He plays solid defensive hockey. He's in on the forecheck. He wins battles. He stands up for his teammates. He's showing good defensive play. They got him on the penalty kill. He sacrifices his body. Pierre, That's a great comeback season for Josh Anderson.
It's gigantic. He's one of the most improved players in the league. There's no question. And he's going to – and George, just so we're all clear on this, I'm not a goon kind of a coach. Josh Anderson is going to have to establish something physically against Washington. I mean, if he doesn't stabilize Tommy Wilson early, we're going to have a problem here.
Like world, I like my life peaceful, but my sports violent. And so if he has to do that in the playoffs, I'm okay with that. Guys, aside from Chris Patrick in Washington, Kent's got to be considered as executive of the year. And I think MSL's got to be in the coach of the year conversation right now. And I know Washington coach of the year, I get that. But Chris Patrick changed that team overnight, it feels like.
Yeah. For coaches, I say if I could just narrow it down to Carberry, Arneal, and Marty St. Louis. Look, like they're not the only ones, but obviously there's more that we can talk about. But I think those three guys have made a real good case for themselves, right?
I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly with everything.
By the way, can we say congratulations to the Columbus Blue Jackets on a fantastic season? I mean, that team and that fan base obviously must have been really devastated today to find out that 7 Carolina Hurricane regulars were out of the lineup. And I want Montreal Canadiens fans to think about this for a second. If Carolina was going into Columbus tonight and they were resting 7 regulars, you probably would go nuts. Pierre, for the integrity of the National Hockey League, and by the way, if I was Carolina, I'd do the exact same thing. Could you imagine playing a guy like Slavin or a guy like Aho or Jarvis in a meaningless game for you and they get hurt and you don't have them for the playoffs? So I don't know how you can not, or how you can get around this or not get around it, but just talk to me about the integrity of the game, even though we all understand, like, what's your thoughts on this, Pierre? Because it's a little bit unfortunate in a way for a fan base like the Columbus Blue Jackets. But if you're Carolina, you have to do it, right, Pierre?
Well, you have to do it because you earn the right to do it. You know what I mean? You played 80 games or 81 games, and you earned the right to sit your guys down to rest them. If you were just a team that was not very good and you were resting guys, you'd say, oh, they're tanking on purpose. They want to lose. Scotty Bowman told a great story today on our iTest podcast, and he said, back in 1968 or 67, he was coaching St. Louis. They were playing a game in L.A., and Clarence Campbell was running the NHL, and he called them up, and he said, hey, you guys better dress a full lineup tonight because it's going to hurt the integrity of the game. Back then, they worried about it. Now it's not so much of a worry. You know why? Because there's 32 teams. Yeah. You got to earn your points every single night.
And it's not load management. It's not like the NBA. It's not load management.
No,
they're not doing that. This is at the end of the season and the playoffs in NHL. It's 2 months of hell. And I think that, I think integrity-wise, it's okay at a time like this. Says the guy whose team just benefited. Yeah.
You said something early on about 5 minutes ago. You talked about the transparency, Kent Hughes sharing with members of the media and the fan base, that conversation that he had with Nick Suzuki when Nick Suzuki supposedly went into his office on the 7th floor and said, Kent, don't trade away any of the unrestricted free agents, man. Like, keep this team together. We're friends. We're a family. And you know what? Don't trade them away. And Kent said, Nick, if you're going to come into my office and you're going to tell me not to trade those guys away, I'm going to tell you that don't give me any choice. Don't give me any choice. Go out there and put the team on your back. Lead the team. And if you do that and you win games, I won't trade them away. And Suzuki says, deal. And he walks out. They play the next 5 games. He picks up 13 points. They go 5-0. It's at that point that Kent Hughes says, you know what? I can't trade Jake Evans, even though I was planning on trading him possibly, even because we didn't think we were going to come to a deal. Even though Jake Evans thinks he's gone, let's revisit here and let's try and make it happen. And Jake Evans says to his agent, you know what? I probably could have got more on the open market, but I'm really happy here. My friends are here. These guys are like family to me. I want to stay here. And boom, he stays. His girlfriend was already in Toronto. The bags were already packed in the apartment. He thought he was gone. He stays. I want to add to this whole Kent Hughes story. He has shown an incredible transparency that a lot of general managers in the history of the Montreal Canadiens probably have not shown as much because it's the Montreal Canadiens. Kent is an unbelievable communicator. He's also a very honest man. I'm sure there's some things he doesn't tell us, but how about that conversation with Slavkovsky? when he says to Slafkovsky, Pierre, hey, I didn't draft you to play like Jack Hughes, because if you're going to try and play like Jack Hughes, I drafted the wrong player. I drafted you to play a different kind of hockey. I want you to go in on the forecheck. I want you to hit guys. I want you to retrieve pucks. I want you to steal pucks. I want you to kind of change the momentum of hockey. I want you to be a physical force. I want you to be a modern day power forward. Take a look at the Kachucks. Take a look at those players. That's what I want you to be. And that's when you're going to be those guys or play like those guys. That's when you're going to be your best. And that's the Uri Slafkovsky that we want on our team right now and going forward. Pierre, that's unbelievable transparency. Talk to me about what Strombo was saying. Kent Hughes telling everyone what he told Nick Suzuki and telling everyone what he told Uri Slafkovsky.
I think it's great. Everybody understands where everybody sits. Everybody.
It makes it real. It makes it real. Yeah. Because now it's one of those things. Again, when you talk to somebody, if you put it out there, then those guys can't shirk and hide knowing they're protected. Kent's a different kind of GM. I have an agent. Kent talks like an agent, and like the kind of agent that tells his clients the truth. No one really wants your agent to tell you the truth, but you're glad they do in the end. Kent talks like an agent, not a guy protecting the game or his team. It's a guy trying to win the best thing for his client. That's a very different kind of mindset.
Strombo, I would imagine that Brian Wilde would be over the top happy to say hi to you. So before I say good night and thank you so much for your time, can we bring in Brian Wilde? Can we do that? Are we set up with that? Sure.
I got nowhere to be. I'm ready for you. Hey, Wilde.
hey, listen, how are you? If you want to stick around, Strombo, you're on.
I'll stay. I'm right here.
All right. Brian, how are you? Say hello to George Stroumboulopoulos and Pierre McGuire.
Hey, George, how you doing? Been watching
Good,
you
buddy.
for
How are
years.
you? Likewise, I've been following you.
Well. Hi.
I'm retweeting you on Twitter or X whenever I can.
Oh, I appreciate that very much. Hi, Pierre. How are you tonight?
Good, Brian. How you doing?
Oh, I just got in only seconds ago. That was a wild atmosphere. It was really exciting to be there. There's something special about achieving something that no one thought you had a chance to do. Mm-hmm. It feels different than when you were expected to do that thing. So they were all over the moon. And, as somebody that's a freelancer who gets continue to be paid now doing my work, I'm over the moon too. Nothing like actually earning your keep a little bit.
You know what? I prefer to talk about first-round playoff matchup versus the Washington Capitals than what truck Marty St. Louis is driving to for the next 4 months.
Right. Or the 16 and 17 pick. There'll be plenty of time for that, right?
All right. So, Brian, I've received a lot of messages tonight from a lot of people saying, oh, you know what, they don't look great in the last week. I say, you know what? Let's worry about that tomorrow. Like tonight, just enjoy the night. And like Pierre McGuire told Max Lapierre, tonight's one of those nights where Marty St. Louis says to the boys, day off tomorrow.
Go drink.
Go out and have fun.
Exactly.
Right? You guys
go drink.
Fantastic there. Go have a good night tonight.
You don't get a lot of chance to get rewards in the National Hockey League because the games come fast and furious. This is one of those nights where you tell the guys, it's open season. Go have some fun tonight.
Yeah, and it's all about, they've been saying it the last couple of weeks, and I think Martin St. Louis has been, a really amazing philosopher, and people didn't really want to listen to the message when he was giving all of that philosophy in the last 2-3 days because they hadn't accomplished their goals. And I find that was very short-term thinking by, pretty much everyone to have that attitude about what they're trying to achieve here, because even if they didn't reach the finish line this year, there were just so many things that happened that were wonderful because they're all just these little steps that you have to take before you can take giant steps. Like nobody, arrives on the moon. Like you've got to work to get to the moon. And everything that they've achieved before actually making the playoffs had such amazing value to it. So I was kind of like a pissed off commentator for the last 4 or 5 days, because I really hated how little everybody was valuing all of the things that they were achieving because they hadn't crossed the finish line. And thank God they did, because now I don't look like a fool defending Martin St. Louis for 5 days and Uri Slafkovsky for starting to do the right thing all the time for 5 days. And the captain and Lane Hudson and everybody that looks like a hero right now was always a hero. They just hadn't crossed the finish line yet.
Yeah. Pierre, what did you think of Slavkovsky's game tonight? Because, you told us the other night you could have moved his feet a little bit more. You also talked about the fact that if he wasn't going to play better hockey, there could be an opportunity to see Demidov on that line. What did you think of Slavkovsky's game tonight?
He was much better. He was much better. He was much more composed with the puck. He was much bigger on the boards. There was one battle, I think it was in the third period, he lost along the boards, where it's like, that's one of those where you show him the tape in 2 or 3 days and say, okay, you can't do that against Washington in the first round. Outside of that, I thought he was a lot better. He was
a +3 tonight, by the way, guys. 1 assist, 1 point. He was a +3. He had a couple of shots on goal. He had a hit in the hockey game, and he had so he had a hit and a couple of shots on goal. Nick Suzuki, by the way, guys, had a goal and an assist. He had 2 points. Nick Suzuki was a +4 on the night, and Cole Caulfield, who had an assist, was a +3 on the night. So, guys, you know what? You take a look at, in the most important game, right? You take a look at your key guys, some of the guys that really were most responsible for bringing you there. In the Canadiens' case, the number one line was absolutely huge. And how about the pairing of Matheson and Carrier? Matheson was +2. Carrier was +2. It was a big night for some pretty important players on the Montreal Canadiens. Strombo, what did you think of Suzuki tonight? Once again, having a really solid game. And for you, who's the unsung hero? We haven't even talked about Kaiden Guhle. Who would have thought that Kaiden Guhle would have got 2 goals in a playoff clinching game for the Montreal Canadiens? Strombo, do you see some offensive upside for Kaiden Guhle?
I mean, just seeing a guy score a goal, a defenseman scoring a goal on a wrist shot in 2025 on a wrist shot. That was yeah, I do see it. I think also a lot of those guys were feeling maybe a little bit of what Mr. Wilde was feeling. This kind of, we got to be able to get over this hump. Unsung heroes. I know how everybody talks about Mike Matheson, but Mike Matheson, this team's not in the playoffs without Mike Matheson. And sure, he makes mistakes, but he's on the ice so much against so many great players. He's going to make mistakes. I thought Slav also had that key screen on one of the goals, and he made himself small. He made himself small, and I thought you could even see his face where he knew it was an intentional body shift to make that screen effective. Slav, I think, is I still don't understand the psychology of a player. On the goalie goal, I still don't understand why Slav is. You've been on benches, Pierre. You know better why a player who's really good doesn't do the one thing they need to do to be effective. Slav, it's simple. Everybody says it all the time. Skate. You watch him get the puck and coast, and you think, well, this is going to be a bad game because he doesn't do the one thing he needs to do. Tonight he did a little bit more of it. I think Nick is, we know Nick is the straw that stirs the drink on the team in a lot of ways. Yeah. Because you got a Patrick Laine who will frustrate us forever, but if we can get 21, cool. But that's good for him if they use him properly. But Nick is always he's always involved in those plays. But I don't know that maybe Armia. I think Armia and I think the turnaround for Dvorak is the unsung. I think the Dvorak turnaround to me is the unsung thing because there were really key games we needed where he was a difference maker in that game.
And who would have thought going into the season that Dvorak was still going to be here to finish the season? Like I would have bet the house that he would have been traded before NHL trade deadline. If you're just joining us right now, we got a really exciting podcast tonight and a really exciting panel. I'm Tony Marinaro, Brian Wilde from Global TV Montreal, Pierre McGuire, and former Montreal Canadiens number 93, Doug Gilmour, are with us tonight. All right, okay.
I get that so often. I get so many tweets about that and comments. You look like Doug Gilmour. And I still troll Gilmour every time often when he posts, I always comment my favorite Hab because I just remember that time that we had him. So he hates it when I do that. Gilmour's a good guy.
I want to get back to Guhle for a second, right? You have to think that going into tonight's game, here's a young player who for the past couple of days has been hearing that he was the turning point in the hockey game versus Chicago for the wrong reason. That he left his position and he went out there and he went looking for a hit with the Canadiens having a 2-0 lead with a couple of minutes to go in period number 1. And the Chicago Blackhawks, he takes a penalty. The Blackhawks go on a power play. They score a big goal. Nazar narrows the lead to 2-1. And then all of a sudden the Blackhawks feel, you know what? They're awake again. Guhle, I have a feeling he took it personally. I have a feeling that Guhle was like, you know what? Last one was on me. I'm going to show them tonight. He was unbelievable tonight. I thought he was unbelievable in Toronto too, by the way, on Saturday.
I think he's been unbelievable since he came back from a quad injury, an operation that he was fearing for his life when he was suffering from it. And he wasn't even supposed to return before the end of this season. And instead, what he does is he joins Lane Hutson. And I think that was the partnership that took him to the playoffs. That seems like they have in the making that first pairing that you need to have to be successful in the National Hockey League. And don't forget, Gooley's been a leader. Like when they went to the Memorial Cup, he was the MVP for the Edmonton Oil Kings. That kid knows how to rise to the occasion in the big games. And you can see what it meant to him, too. He grabs the crest right away after that second goal, pounds on it twice. I mean, this is a guy that was ready for that moment. In the interviews before the game, you could also sense, Tony, that he was ready for that moment. He was saying the things that made you feel like he was anticipating being in it. Because I think, and Pierre will speak to this, being behind the bench all the time and watching how champions are built in Pittsburgh, he will attest to the fact that you have to want that moment. You have to be excited for that moment, not fearful of it, because there are different fears. Like there's the fear of losing, of course, but there's also the fear of winning. And if you can get excited for the game, and Gooley made me feel like he was excited for the game, and that's why I think he's a winner.
I got to tell you guys something. You something. It's pretty cool to hear Brian talk that way. Mark Habscheid and Stroumboulopoulos will remember that name because he was considered to be the next. Yeah, Brian, you would know him too. Mark Habscheid was Caden Gooley's coach in Prince Albert, in the Western Hockey League. And Habby and I are really good friends. And so he called me up one day. I'm going to say Gooley's probably 16 years old. And he says, I'm just telling you, this guy's unbelievable because he's got a flair for the dramatic. He's really good. And I ended up watching him play. I'm like, yeah, this guy's really good. And then I saw him, playing for the Oil Kings in Edmonton. I'm going, oh my gosh, he's really going to be something else. Canadians had drafted him. I'm like, whoa. So you could see this happening when he was 16 years old. It's not like it just happened. This guy's been like this for a long time. And I'll never forget Mark calling me up and telling me that. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's a great kid. And Lane Hutson as a partner, I think, is just perfect because I think you need somebody as a partner like Gooley for Hutson that is creative a little bit. Like you can't just have a guy who's like 100% defensive. Some people might want to think that's a better footprint for Hutson, but I think a little bit the creativity on the offensive side of the puck is important for Hutson to kind of mesh with, but then also back him up smartly when Hutson does foray offensively. So I think that's a really nice partnership for years to come.
Guys, are we going to see? Is Reinbacher? Is Reinbacher going to play at any point? Are we going to see him in a playoff round?
I don't know. No, you'll see him in Laval.
Yeah, but I wonder if they'll
the Cup playoffs. I don't think you'll see him in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Oh, it's too late to bring him into that environment.
I would. George, you know what? They got a lot of guys down there. That team's good. They got a chance to have a hell of a run. Like this Jacob Fowler, George. I'm just telling you right now. And Brian's seen him play. And Tony said, this guy's like Marty Brodeur. I'm just telling you. Like I've been watching this guy. I'm telling you, this
talk about it.
You'll see.
Wow, I believe it. I can't wait. I know they're trying something special, but when you were talking about the D and that, I'm just looking for that one guy that doesn't make mistakes. I'm wondering if that's the kind of thing.
Eventually, he will be. Reinbacher will be that guy. He will be. Just not there yet. Not there yet.
Pierre, when the podcast started a couple of minutes, and by the way, I want to thank Julian L on YouTube. He keeps sending money our way, and he's probably having a couple of cold Labitta TBs after the Montreal Canadiens stamping their ticket to the playoffs. But Max Lapierre said something like Lane Hutson's going to get hit like 50 times in the first period. Pierre, Quinn Hughes is an unbelievable defenseman, and he's won the Norris Trophy. But his regular season games have been better than his playoff games, which, I mean, you could say that for a lot of players, I guess, because, the stakes are so much higher and it's a lot more difficult and there's a lot less open ice. But some will say that Quinn Hughes hasn't had good playoff games. How difficult is it going to be for Lane Hutson, who is no longer going to take the National Hockey League by storm? Everyone knows his story by now. Everyone knows the seasons he's had. Montreal Canadiens history books already in his rookie season for most points by a rookie defenseman. How difficult is it going to be for him? And are you convinced that in this long season for him and going into the playoffs, Lane Hutson in the playoffs can be the same Lane Hutson that he was in the regular season?
No,
yes or no, and why?
It's going to be hard. The first game or two is going to be hard, especially in Washington. They'll try to get Wilson out there a lot against him and try to smack him around a little bit. I helped draw up game plans to go after Raymond Bourque. I helped draw up game plans to go after Brian Leetch. And I helped draw up game plans to go after Chris Chelios in Chicago. So I kind of know what you have to do to be successful in those types of situations. So it definitely changes in the playoffs. It's harder for defensemen like that, especially when they're targeted. So he's going to have to adjust. You know, he's always been targeted. He's always been an elite player. But to do it at the college level or the junior level or the world junior level is one thing. To do it in the NHL in a 4 out of 7 is hard.
You remember Sidney Crosby? You remember Sidney Crosby saying that first playoff round that he ever faced, that first game against, I think it was Ottawa. He said it felt like there were 8 guys out there on him in his first game. He said, I couldn't believe how he said, and he's like, there was 8 guys all of a sudden, but there was only the 5. I think Lane's going to feel a little bit of that, but he's he adjusts quickly.
Oh, he does.
So maybe maybe game 3.
I think it's just gravy. Sorry, Tony, just 8 seconds.
No, go ahead.
I think it's just gravy that Lane Hudson and all of them get to experience that, even if it's failure, because that's a part of the process.
Agreed. Really good point.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Strombo, and I know a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans are hoping for what I'm going to ask. We don't have the answer yet. We'll find out. But in a season where Ovechkin exerted so much energy to break the record, do you think that Alex Ovechkin will probably be a notch below what he has been in the regular season in the playoffs?
I think it's logical I don't think it's crazy talk to think that could happen, because teams that go through this kind of thing often have these scenarios. I don't think this, listen, I think the Habs, if anybody could upset Washington, there always will be an upset. I think this could be an upset. This isn't the Washington team that we upset in the Yarrow Halak era, because number one, there isn't a Halak. And number two, I think the Washington team's better. I think this team's got better D. They're tougher. It's a different kind of vibe, much older in some respects. I do think it's possible if they just adjust on the fly. But Tony, I've heard you say this a bunch of times over the course of the year on the Sick podcast. You talk about how we're watching Marty St. Louis learn in real time. Like Lane Hudson and a couple of the kids who are going to have to learn in real time, he's going to have to learn in real time. Also, the coach is not the most experienced coach for Washington either. So you're walking into a scenario where great coach. But this is the thing where if Marty's speed of adjusting can be much faster than it's been all year, then I think we have a chance, because he's made some really interesting choices, ones that I thought were wild, ones that I supported. I think he's going to have to be as nimble as a guy like Lane Hudson is to figure out what to do with Ovi. Just do whatever they're doing to Liney, by the way. Whatever they're doing to shut Liney down at slap shot, do that. Do that to Ovechkin.
Pierre, Strombo just said something interesting, that he thinks that this team could be better than that 2009-2010 Washington Capitals team that the Canadiens upset. But that Washington Capitals team, they had a lot of guys that put up big numbers, right? Ovechkin had scored 50 that year. Semin had scored 40. Backstrom had scored 33. Knubel had scored 29. Brooks Laich had scored 25. They had 109 points, 101 points, 84 points, 76 points. They had Mike Green on that team that picked up more than a point per game for a defenseman. And he was still early on in his National Hockey League career. How did the two teams compare, Pierre? This Washington Capitals team and the one of 2010?
Yeah, this Capitals team has better depth players. Like Nick Dow is one of the best depth players in the National Hockey League. Nobody even talks about the guy. You know, Brandon Duhaime is one of the nastiest pieces of business in the National Hockey League. He's big, he can skate, and he can run you right through the wall. They got some really good depth players there. They miss Oshie, they miss Backstrom, they miss Kuznetsov, no question about it. But they've got, I think they're a harder physical team to play against than that team in 2010.
I'd love to interject on this for a second if I could.
Yes.
And I'm going to take you back to my experience heading into that series. Call me naive. I actually predicted the Canadiens were going to win that series. And Greg Wyshynski, who we all know, very famous, he mocked me mercilessly for predicting that. And the reason I did it when I defended myself as I started on Twitter was I felt that team played offense too much and didn't care about defense. And I felt that they were so concerned on offense. They were not a 200-foot team. And I mention all of that for this reason. This team, this is a 200-foot team, this Capitals team.
100%.
And that's the difference between, if you're expecting an upset because of a lack or some kind of miracle, that team didn't know their own defensive zone at all. And that's why I predicted it. This team does. They're a 200-foot team. And so it's going to be tough sledding is my prediction. Very tough sledding.
I agree.
I would never mock anyone for a playoff prediction, by the way. And case in point, like, I think St. Louis is going to knock off.
Well, they had 40 points between them or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you think St. Louis is going to knock off Winnipeg? Did you just say that?
I do, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think St. Louis is the worst team you could get if you're Winnipeg. I really mean that. Like, Connor Hellebuck's never won in the playoffs. Jordan Binnington just won the Four Nations, and he's got a Stanley Cup in 2019. Like, I'm just telling you, last year, Georgiev beat Hellebuck. Head up. I'm just telling you, like, this is a big series for Connor Hellebuck. Huge.
You know, there's one team, Brian, that well, not every year. I'm not going to say that every year, but we've seen, obviously, in NHL playoffs, on several occasions, there's a team that upsets and goes very far. If there's a team that upsets and goes very far, for me this year, it's St. Louis. That's what I think.
Totally.
All that I think about when I look at the playoffs right now is that I just feel like somehow they got to think about changing the way they format the thing, because 4 of the 6 teams that I favor to win the Stanley Cup are playing each other at the beginning. Colorado, right, Pierre? Colorado, St. Louis, Dallas, and Winnipeg, and all 4 could win the puck, not the cup, if they could get out of their own division.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Hey, look at Tampa and Florida are playing again. Edmonton and LA are playing
crazy.
again.
It's crazy.
The only good news for LA is they got the best home record in the National Hockey League, so all they have to do is win 4 games at home. They don't have to win any games in Edmonton.
Yeah. I'm taking LA. Guys. I'm taking LA there.
Strombo, this is why. Strombo, this is why.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Strombo, this is why Gary Bettman doesn't want to change the playoff structure, right? He was asked about whether or not they're going to go to 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5 again. Julian L just sent us $100. I'm not drunk. Wait a minute. More Bittt TV for me. Go Habs, go. He just sent over $100.
Someone's feeling the winning. That's great.
That's amazing. Okay. Thank you very much, Julian. That's very, very nice of you. We very much appreciate it. With the tariffs, by the way, it's 187. Okay. Gary Bettman doesn't want to change the playoff structure because he wants the same teams to play each other over and over and over again in the playoffs. He's thinking that 2 and 3 will finish 2 and 3 very, very often. So the more they play each other, then there's going to be rivalries, right? I don't know about that. Like there will be. I understand the whole logic, by the way. But you take a look at some of these teams. I mean, what reward is Dallas getting for finishing the way they finished to play Colorado? And what reward is Colorado getting to play Dallas? What reward is Florida getting to play Tampa? And what reward is Tampa getting to play Florida? Like, I actually, anyway, I think even 116, 215, 314, you can even make a case for that too. But you have to hand it to Bettman and say that if he wants rivalries, this is a way to get them, George.
People can attack Gary Bettman all they want, and they love to boo him, and they love to do it. But there is no doubt that Gary Bettman has delivered on his number 1 job, which is making money for his owners. But number 2, finding a way to make decisions that are unpopular seem to work. The Battle of Ontario, the Battle of Florida in the East in the first round, every night is going to be unbelievable to watch. I've been in LA watching. I'm in Toronto now, but I've been in LA watching Oiler Kings games. It's a real hate on. That's a real thing. We don't have the glorious Dallas, Colorado, or Detroit, Colorado rivalry anymore. But Dallas and Colorado in the first round, we all know that the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs is the best of any kind of round of any playoff in the world. I don't think there's an easy out. I do agree with you about Winnipeg. I do think that LA is probably going to beat Edmonton. I don't think Florida is going to win more than 2 games. They just feel drained. And I think they've lost enough on D. Tampa's scary, but the end of the Bruins era doesn't mean that we have there's only one series in the East that I look at and I go, I don't really care who wins, Carolina or New Jersey. I don't
You know
care who wins that series.
That's a great point, though, eh? When he talks about the Battle of Florida in round one, the Battle of Ontario in round one, and the Battle of New York, because the Rangers and the Islanders are going to play a 4 of 7 golf series starting on Monday. All right. So
that's right.
The Rangers, what a collapse.
Just to back George up for 1 second, when I was in the National Hockey League, Gary Bettman came in. I was a head coach of the Hartford Whalers. The revenues for the league at that time were $500 million for every team. Now they're $6.5 billion.
Yeah.
500 million to 6.5 billion.
I remember, do you remember, Pierre, one day on Hockey Night in Canada, this is before I was hosting it, where I think Jim Balsley was trying to pull a fast one on the Board of Governors and Gary to get a team in Hamilton. And Don Cherry, who never at that time wasn't a company man by any means, but he said on Coach's Corner that one night, the streets are littered with the bodies of the people who tried to cross Gary Bettman. Gary knows what he's doing in this sense. This is really competitive, really exciting hockey. Look at what the shootout means. Look at all this stuff, how that 3-on-3. Gary has made this league very successful. That new TV deal, which is an insane number, in an era where baseball's in trouble in the U.S. and other sports are in trouble. I love hockey, motorcycle racing, and curling. And I think that you look at these sports, there's growth. But what Gary's been able to do this long in, it's really impressive financially.
Couldn't agree more. Tony, I'm telling you, George nailed that right there.
He did nail that, because Gary Bettman has been great for the National Hockey League, especially for their owners. And I'm going to say this, and it's not because George is here. George, I know you're busy, and I know you're very successful with everything that you do, but TV so needs you. Like, you need to be back on a hockey panel, and I thought you were a breath of fresh air back then. And it's funny because whoever it is that hired you actually was a visionary. They saw things before they were actually going there. And it's kind of weird, because I find right now a lot of TV networks, with all due respect to them, and not all of them, but some of them are still going backwards and they're still stuck in the days. I thought you were a breath of fresh air. And
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
it was Scott Moore, right?
No, the guy who hired me was Keith Pelly. The problem is, a year after he hired me, he split to go run golf. And when he split to go run golf, I knew this group of Hockey Night does not want a visionary here. My job was to change it. Scott Moore, like when I was there, they had told me that the ratings went up with people under 30 and with women. My goal was to grow the sport as well. I'm one of those Montreal Canadian fans that wants every team to be successful. I don't make fun of, Sun Belt teams. I want every team. I wanted Arizona to work. I want every team to be successful, because I love this game. And I think, we talk about this elbows up and where we are, elbows up, but in the hockey context, shoulders down. And we see how incredible the response in the U.S. was to the Four Nations, because they weren't used to seeing this kind of intensity for a game that didn't mean anything, an exhibition series, essentially. So I want this game to grow. But the moment Keith Pelly went to take the golf gig, I remember Kipper looked at me in the Kippers, and I looked at him and like, well, I didn't think I was going to last. I thought I was going to get fired after 3 years anyway, because I was trying to be too progressive. And I only had lasted 2 years, but it was totally fine. Dude, honestly, the majority of the sports content that I consume is on YouTube, and the majority, I don't even watch. I wish that the Sick Podcast was on in the intermissions, because I'd rather watch you guys talk than what I've seen on television, because you're more progressive, and the sports needs to change. The way the numbers on how millennials and Gen Z watch sports and consume sports has changed. I always want to be way ahead of the curve. And what you're doing on the Sick Podcast, what Dangle was doing for Leaf fans, there's a different energy that I don't find. So I don't need to be on TV. I'd rather be doing this with you guys. This is way more fun.
Wow.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Pierre, I feel like you would know this or have a pretty good idea. I'm a night early with this question, but what night do you think the Habs will start? Do you think the Leafs Ottawa will be Saturday and the Habs?
They're starting Monday, Brian. They're starting Monday. I'm hearing
Toronto's playing tomorrow night, so they won't be playing Saturday. No chance.
Who's starting Monday?
I'm going to say Toronto. Toronto's a good chance they might be starting Monday or Sunday.
Okay, and the Canadiens?
Well, I'll tell you this, Brian.
Okay.
So
already?
Well, TVA has the rights, right?
Okay.
So they usually give the TV networks some of the possible dates.
All right.
And those dates are subject to change. All right. What I had heard through the grapevine was that the Canadiens were likely going to start Monday in Washington. So
that long?
Yeah. So look, it hasn't. Sunday or Monday, but more chance Monday, and I don't think it's come out yet, unless we're on NHL.com. I don't think it's come out yet.
No, they got to let the season finish.
Yeah, it's going to be Sunday or Monday, but I'm hearing there's going to be more chance that they're going to start on Monday.
All right, thank you, sir.
Is Lane Hudson going to go skate every day, or is somebody going to take his skates away and tell him to rest?
George, they shouldn't allow him to go to the rink tomorrow. They shouldn't allow Suzuki to go to the rink.
Yeah.
Savard shouldn't go to the rink. They should all get total time off. They should not be allowed in the rink.
So, guys, the Stanley Cup playoffs will begin Saturday with the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars each hosting game one of the Western Conference. All right. So Dallas, Colorado, that game is going to start at 8:30 p.m. and you can watch it on TNT and Sportsnet, of course, and TV Sport. And then there's also going to be the Jets who are going to host the St. Louis Blues. And that game is going to be at 6 p.m. So the Jets and the Blues are going to be the first game at 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And the Stars and the Avalanche are going to be game 2. The NHL will announce the full first round schedule on Thursday, but we do know that on Saturday it starts with Winnipeg and St. Louis, and then after that with Dallas and Colorado.
Okay, good. That's good information. Oh boy, that first game, St. Louis and Winnipeg. Yikes! Talk about starting with a bang, man.
Caden Gooley told the media that they're starting on Monday. So the players know they are indeed starting on Monday. So, yeah, TVL was given the information. So the Canadiens start on Monday. There you have it.
Well, that's
right.
That's news.
My buddy Davey sent that to me. He says, by the way, there's something here on social media. You can check it out. Sammy and in yellow and Master Control. We've gone on a little bit longer than usual, but hey, the Montreal Canadiens just made the playoffs. And as long as these gentlemen want to stick around, I'm going to keep them here. Can you tell me how many people we have watching right now at the same time? And I want to let everyone know that the other night, on Monday night, when we were at the Manoir, we had hit our career high, which is a very respectable 10,800. If Stroumboulopoulos were doing this, he'd have about 1 million. But we're at 12,000 tonight. All right, so we've hit a career high. We're at 12,000. But this is the power of the Montreal Canadiens, right? So many people are happy. They're happy to be on, and it's funny because Stroumboulopoulos. So many people stop me in the street saying, when the Canadiens are going through a winning streak, they're like, "Oh, you must be so upset that they're winning games because you must want them to lose games because I bet you your radio shows and your podcasts are so much better when they lose." And I said, "Look, every now and then, like if they lose a couple of games, you know that you can grind someone, all right, or you can
yeah.
A little
That's
bit.
right.
That's fine. Like you don't want to win 82 games, but I say for the most part." You'd rather be hosting a radio show, a TV show, or a podcast when the team is winning. And this is proof of it, right? When they lose games, we have half the numbers, maybe a third of the numbers that we usually have. When they win hockey games
for sure,
and win big ones like tonight, we're 12,000.
I can speak to that on my readership too. Page views drop 75-80% when they lose.
Really?
It's insane. The difference between people are like, I don't want to read about this. I'm already so disappointed. I want to read Wild now. No way.
Maybe I'm too much of a nihilist. I'm a very positive nihilist that when the Habs are losing, I also can't wait to watch because I liked it in the rebuild. I don't like anything in the middle. I want them winning and I want them terrible. I don't like the middle of the road team. That's why if they had finished 2 or 3 points out of the playoffs, I would have been bummed. We already got that Flames draft pick, right? It's if you're going to do this, get closer to winning. So when the Habs are losing, I'm always really curious. Maybe, Tony, I just want to see how you're going to handle it and watch you walk through and taking the calls. Yeah.
Pierre will have plenty of time to talk about this with the Canadiens starting their first round playoff series once again Monday night in Washington. But let's just get ahead of the curve here. Your lines. Is it what we saw tonight? Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky. Newhook with Liney and Demidov, Armia with Evans and Heineman, and Dvorak with Gallagher and Anderson? Or do you think Demidov is going to be on another line? Because like you said tonight, his coach didn't quite trust his defensive game as much of other players and didn't give him a lot of ice time. Do you see him with other players, Pierre, or this is the way you see it?
I see him with the same line.
Same line.
Here's the one thing that I don't think will be talked about. This is from the Bowman School of Higher Learning in hockey. Sometimes with Russian players, they play against another Russian player on the other team, and they get jacked up. They want to show them how good they are. Alex Ovechkin's a pretty damn good player. What do you think Demidov's going to want to do when he's playing against Ovechkin?
Well,
I want to go out there and show him how good I am.
Roman Rodenberg, coach of SKA, says that he asked Demidov, Ivan, what do you want to do here once their season was over? You want to go to the VHL team and you want to play with your brother? And he says that Ivan Demidov told him, I want to go play versus Alexander Ovechkin in the NHL playoffs.
There you go. I'm just telling you, I've been in the league 35 years. Guys want to prove points. You know, everybody makes money in the league. There are no poor guys in the league. They all make money, but they want to prove something. And this guy's going to want to prove a lot.
Speaking of Demidov and money,
watching Finns play Swedes, same thing. I like watching Finns play Swedes and Russians play Russians because there's something deeper there.
There is.
You're right about that.
Right on. You're right, 100%.
George, Pierre, Brian. Speaking of Ivan Demidov and speaking of money, let's bring this up. Do we have it? I'm not so sure that we do. I thought we did. All right. Okay. So I'll just say it. Guess how much? I don't know if you guys had a chance to see this. Jersey sales.
$250,000.
$250,000. That's right. So the Montreal Canadiens had their biggest single-day sales in franchise history for jerseys. During Ivan Demidov's debut game, they sold over $250,000 worth of Demidov jerseys.
And that was their biggest single day?
Yeah,
wow.
Yep.
Well, that's
you should get a cut of that, Tony, because the podcast live stream conversations around Demidov leading up to the draft all the time, like you guys have done a great job of whipping all of us into a frenzy over this kid. And so like you have me believing Michael Hage is going to be a deal breaker, like a game changer for us. And he probably is. So I think there's just a different ecosystem of excitement around the Habs that we get to feed all the time now. And it's different than sports radio. It has its role, but this is different. Yeah. And I think so call Chantel Maccabee so you can get a cut.
Well, thank you for saying that, but I got a lousy agent. Just ask Daniello and Sammy. They got me on gift certificates. And the worst part is they expired a couple of years ago. Please, Tony, get a cut on that. I can't give you enough. This coming from Julian L., who's the guy who's been donating all night, which is pretty cool. Guys, look, we can go all night, but let's just end with this. Brian, your proudest moment of this team, and if there was a turning point for you, we can get to predictions over the next couple of days. So let's go with this.
Oh, I think I need to think on that one.
Yeah. Pierre, was there a turning point in this season? And for you, the thing that most put a smile on your face?
I think the turning point was after they got wiped out in Washington. The coach skated their butts off on a Friday in Washington. Then they flew up to Pittsburgh, and they didn't play. They played well enough. They were better, but they started a surge after that. So they didn't take the punishment skate personally as players. So I thought that was a turning point in terms of where I kind of thought, I'm really proud of these guys. When they're down to Colorado at home and it's not looking good, and all of a sudden, even though they didn't play an A game, they found a way to get back in it. That's where I'm like, there's something here. There's something here.
I'm ready now.
Down 4-1 that game, by the way, on a Saturday night, and they end up losing by a score of 5-4 in a shootout, if my memory serves me well, on a goal by Brock Nelson. Brian?
All right. I think the turning point was that they got the rest of the Four Nations break. They were a team that was completely floundering. They had only one win in their last 10 before the break. And I think that 2-week rest for everyone, mentally, emotionally, physically, changed everything. They came out of the break. And since the break, I think they've been the third best team in the entire National Hockey League. And they just concluded their last 10 games by getting a point in 9 of them. And the only failure being Ottawa. So I think that just getting that rest, they were an exhausted team that had been traveling too much. And I think I'm most proud of of that they drafted, that they nurtured, and then they gave a chance to a little pipsqueak to become the greatest scoring defenseman rookie of assists in NHL history and the 4th highest ever in points. And so I think I'm proud of the organization for nurturing all of that and giving him opportunity. Because I think 10 years ago, after the first month filled of defensive errors and difficulties and a minus 17 very quickly, I think another coach and another organization may have pined him, and that would have changed everything.
Before we get to George, a shout out to Bittt TV. They launched a new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for those nice spring days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. George Stroumboulopoulos, what, in your opinion, was the turning point for the Montreal Canadiens this season? Because as I said, back on February 10th, the Canadiens had 55 points. They were 11 and 8 points out of a wild card spot behind Boston and Pittsburgh. And then after the Four Nations, their record has been 15-5-6. And they get in, and Boston, and so does Ottawa, and Boston and Pittsburgh are nowhere to be found.
I think the turning point was the conversation, the trade conversation between Nick Suzuki and Kent Hughes, because I think Nick is a sweet guy. He leads by example, plays hard, didn't seem to be, as vocal as we want him. We know he is more vocal in the dressing room than he presents, but I got the sense after that conversation that Nick Suzuki realized, I need to become a different kind of leader. And I think that those kids like to be led, and I think they like it when he does it. So I think everybody's saying, of course, you guys know more about the game than I do, but just on a psychological level, I think that change in Nick made him and them a different team. That made this even possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they kept their players as well.
Yeah.
So Brian, we've been going in locker rooms for quite some time. You more so than I have. We've seen a lot of locker rooms. Pierre obviously has been very involved in a lot of locker rooms. Often we hear it's a tight-knit group. It's a great locker room. And we used to hear that in years when it wasn't true. We actually used to have players that would, wouldn't be happy with each other and stuff like that. For me, this team this year, it's hard not to be a fan of this team this year because they're a family. In the ups and in the downs, they stuck up for each other. When I saw Josh Anderson fight Trouba because he delivered a hit that gave Justin Barron a concussion at that point. When I saw Josh Anderson say, you know what, to Tom Wilson, I've had enough of you going around running all of my guys and hitting everybody. Let's go. When I see Nick Suzuki say to the guys, follow my lead. When I see Cole Caulfield saying, I don't care how small people think I am, I'm going to score goals. And Lane Hudson does the same thing, but on defense. When I see a guy, Samuel Montembeault, who once upon a time was put on waivers, and we looked at him and we didn't think he was a National Hockey League goalie, and he represents Canada at the Four Nations face-off, and he has a career high in games played and in games won. And there's so many great stories, and the list goes on and on. When I see Brendan Gallagher bouncing back after so many people thought his career was done a couple of years ago, and he scores 20-plus goals this year. And by the way, there was a very emotional exchange with the jersey with that fan who had bought that jersey for Hockey Fights Cancer. That was a jersey that Brendan's mom wore at the time. And she reached out to Brendan and said, you know what? I bought this jersey back in the day, but, it's got your mom's name on it and you deserve it. I want you to have it. And Brendan says, oh my God, why don't we do a jersey swap on the final night of the season? I'll give you my game worn jersey. And that happened. It was pretty emotional. This is a family. I'm happy for the Montreal Canadiens because I don't want to say that there's been some rotten eggs or some bad people in the past. But what I will tell you is there's a lot of good people in this organization right now. Like a lot
Tony,
of good people.
I'll say it, Tony. There have been. The team had a terrible culture for a long time, and we would hear stories, and I was in the dressing room, and I would see those things. The team had a bad culture in a lot of different ways. And, champagne parties when guys got traded, like there was a vibe in that room that wasn't good. And it's not just there. You know, growing up in Toronto, I see what happens with this team here. My friends who are Leaf fans who hate the Habs like this group. They like the organization. It's easy to root for the Montreal Canadiens. It's been a minute since it's been easy to root for the Montreal Canadiens top to bottom.
And Brian, Lord knows this city needs the Montreal Canadiens in the playoffs, right? There hasn't been much to celebrate in this city. The streets have been cleaner in the past. The potholes have been less in the past. Many businesses have been thriving a lot more in the past. There used to be a lot more parking spots available in the past. I'm sure there's more bikes now. I get it. But this city needs the Montreal Canadiens in the playoffs, and they did it. So,
yeah, and we didn't really get to enjoy it in 2021 either. You know, it was COVID, and the building was mostly empty because of all the rules of not being within 6 feet of each other. So, you know, this one will have the city is healthy and alive, and COVID is past this vibe, and that's going to be great.
By the way, it's such a simple logo, but it really is beautiful, though, eh?
Yeah.
There you go. I like it. Larry. Love that. That's my guy.
Big Bird. Yeah. My father arrived here back in 1967 from Italy, and there was a big buzz around the Montreal Canadiens, of course. And back in 71, he still talks about that series versus the Boston Bruins. Julian sent us over $20.
Wake up broke.
You know what's amazing is Julian sent over $200 tonight. And I don't know who told him my weekly salary here at the podcast, but he got it right. That's unbelievable. Anyway, my dad started following the Canadiens, Pierre, as soon as he got here back in 1967. And he fell in love with that team that in 71 upset Bobby Orr and the Boston Bruins and went on to beat the Chicago Blackhawks in the final. Anyway, he saw the Canadiens win a lot of Stanley Cups in the 70s. And especially from 76 to 79, all the way through. And of all the great players that have played for this organization, his favorite hockey player with the Montreal Canadiens, his favorite hockey player of all time is Bobby Orr, believe it or not. But his favorite hockey player with the Montreal Canadiens was Larry Robinson. So that's a nice jersey you got there, Strombo. It's a nice jersey. Pierre loves Larry so much that when they interviewed him for the vacant GM job with the Montreal Canadiens, he said one of the first things he'll do, Pierre, huh? You said it?
Hire Larry Robinson. I told him that. I told him that right in the meeting. At the airport Marriott in Montreal, Kevin Gilmore, Jeff Molson, Michael Andlauer, and one of their attorneys. That's what I told him.
Do it now for the playoffs. What he did in St. Louis. Bring him in now if he's available.
No, he was unbelievable there. I mean, I did that spring. I did every single St. Louis Blues game from the start of the playoffs to the end. And I'm just telling you, Larry was there all the time. And the difference he made for Jay Bouwmeester, for Alex Pietrangelo, for Colton Parayko, for Michael Del Zotto. Like, unbelievable what he did for those guys, George. Amazing.
Guys, awesome stuff. The Canadiens win by a score of 4-2, and the Montreal Canadiens are not only in the mix, they made the playoffs on game 82 of the season. Strombo, you're a rock star. You know that. I tell you that so many times. I have so much respect for what you've done with your career and continue to do. For me, it's an honor to have you on the Sick Podcast tonight. Thank you very much, my friend. Very much appreciated.
I love being on here with you. And shout out to Eric Engels for getting me your number. I love being on here with you.
Thank you very much. Brian Wilde of Global TV Montreal for always bringing the passion. Thank you, Brian. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
And Pierre McGuire, who is brought to you, of course, by Restaurant Vago with the McGuire Report. Gentlemen, thank you very much. For Agnello and Sammy and Master Control, the Montreal Canadiens have made the playoffs. And my wife is sleeping, and she's likely going to divorce me, which I don't want to happen. But hey, the Montreal Canadiens made the playoffs. Go Habs, go. Canadiens and the Capitals starting on Monday night. And by the way, in case you're wondering, the Sick Podcast, which goes weeknights at 10 p.m., we will be on for Montreal Canadiens post-game shows, even when the Canadiens play on weekends. So if the Canadiens are playing Monday, Wednesday, and then Friday and Sunday, we'll not only be on Monday after the game and Wednesday after the game and Friday after the game, but we'll also be on, of course, on the Sunday after the game. Thanks for watching, everyone. It's a beautiful night in Montreal and a beautiful night for Montreal Canadiens players, coaches, the organization, the ownership group, and Canadiens fans all around the world. I'm happy for you. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.